Bennett back again, reporting from the scene of the crime tonight. And I picked up so much information, and hopefully I can get most of you back that were online. You know, I'm such a poor boy from a poor family, I don't even have service, so I rely on Wi-Fi. And I'm using a Yelp connection tonight, and it's drifting in and out. You know, it's a battle with money, and I'm just going to be honest about it. I spend most of my time, sometimes I spend a lot of time crying because it hurts. Why not cry? It's better than losing it. And I love all the people around me. I dislike the people that hurt me. And unfortunately for them, some of them are facing some prison time. And, you know, well-deserved, actually, when you figure out what they've done to me and my family and my friends and my customers. The guy broadcasting here, for those of you that don't know me, I've had multiple customers killed. I've had friends killed. I've had witnesses killed. And I've lost millions. But I lost the most important asset, which is my 2 sons. And I intend to get them back and explain to them what the hell's been going on for the last 25 years. Part of the reason I stayed away at some points in time was so they wouldn't get hurt. And I will repeat this a couple of times during my broadcasts. With my son, oh, I'm back again. So I invited everybody in again, and hopefully you guys will pipe back in. The signal's kind of sketchy, and but you can always look at it later. But I call this the scene of the crime of Walnut Creek, and I'm going to upload this video to walnutcreekmurders.com. And the reason I've set up this domain, very simple. I'm not a witness to the shootings, but I'm around when the shootings happen, which bugged me immensely. Across the street is Krogan's, where several people I know are killed in separate incidents. One was killed in the ghost ship fire. Her name was Sarah Hoda, and man, she was the sweetest girl in the world, and she really was. She was so nice. You would love to have her as a friend. For me, I used to sing with her, and she would sit down and listen to me play music. Excuse me. When I was playing over at Wells Fargo, or when I played over here, which you can't see, but behind me is Retro Drunkie, and excuse me, that's the wrong bar. It used to be called Redux. And at the scene of the crime here in Walnut Creek is that corner right there. A man lost his life in August of 2016. His name was Courtney Brown. Courtney Brown is friends with Art, who owns the Nika Lounge. And then the guy that tried to kill me here in Walnut Creek was Robert Fraser. And a lot of people in Walnut Creek and the music community know this guy, or knew him, excuse me. And Robert was gunned down 3 days after District Attorney Mark Peterson pled guilty. So what I'm doing is I'm laying down the tracks, and these videos are going up raw, unedited, and also edited, so for continuity and clarity. So how long have I lived here? I've been here 40 years, and I know or knew all the original landowners, and I started very young, at the age of 21, and I got introduced to a lot of building owners, and I built a whole business just downtown Walnut Creek: hammer, screwdriver, and drill, and a little Datsun pickup truck. You know, your classic work from the dirt to riches. No, actually, I was just kind of young and dumb and restless, and I didn't really figure out what the right things to do was. But I knew that if I pushed my hands forward and lifted up things, that I could make money. And I did pretty well. And that turned into, you know, a big cabinet shop. And I have to give credit to my former fiance, Denise, because she's the one that came in and started doing the books, and she was good at it. I was okay at it. She was really good at it. And we started making money, and we started becoming very profitable. I was astounded once we got it down right by 1985. So, you know, truth be told, you know, you make mistakes, and you learn from your mistakes. Sometimes my lessons were $50,000, sometimes more. But I got through it, And here I am 40 years later, and I'm piecing together a complicated story. I know the owners of this building. I know the owners of this building. I probably know the owners of this building. I think it's probably the children, and this is the thing here. But the interesting part about my story was I was actually talking to the owner of Sost, and here in Walnut Creek, and I told him people are getting killed. And that was the Friday night that Courtney Brown got killed. And here I am telling this guy that people are getting whacked, and less than, well, what's the size of a street? About 100 and some odd feet from where I'm standing now, and from where we were talking in front of that opening over there at the doorway, the guy got killed. Exactly what I said. So now what I'm doing is, the dust is settled. I'm reassembling my finances, and I've lost so much money, and I put my foot in the ground because I knew deep down that they're going to return to try to kill my sons again, and they've tried more than once. My oldest son was in the Santa Barbara fires. I don't know exactly where he was, and my sons and my ex-wife were in the Paradise fires in 2000. One person died, and I was set on fire, and back in my Plaza Circle, there's one fatality by fire, 2 houses that caught on fire, and one had 2 children in it. So the person that does this is a serial arsonist, and I'm positive of that. That's why I have the serialarsonist.com. And I know that the failures with San Ramon Fire and Con Fire, 40 years of failures, not just this week. There we go. Not just this week, are relevant to my argument. Shit. There we go. Sorry if the signal looks a little... There we go. Maybe I'm getting closer to where the Wi-Fi is. Now the signal looks pretty good. So, you know, I know these corners. I've been in all these buildings. My attorneys worked in these buildings. I had offices here, and I went through hundreds of thousands of dollars setting up offices, getting customers, and then getting forced out of business. I had police officers break into my office, 2 offices, one on Broadway and one on Oakland Boulevard, and this is for the Chief Chaplin to understand. On top of that, I had police officers in my computer store after I had a man with a gun. No police report on any of this stuff, and they took my equipment and during another incident. And what I think the goal has been to find out what I have and what I know, because obviously I know a lot and I've acquired a lot. And now what I'm doing, this is the agitation video. All right. So if you were go to my blog, I'm working on the menus. Bear with me. cnetscandal.blogspot.com. But if you want a fast tour, just type in # PG&E witness. And the reason I'm broadcasting is I have people in my story that have been hurt. I have children that have been killed, and I'm going to start talking, and I don't give a poop. Nice word. And Nancy, I hope you come in tonight, and if you ever feel down and out, just come call me and we'll commiserate. I can talk you out of all kinds of things that are not right. So, and she actually opened up to me earlier, and I was like, wow, we're not going to let that happen, Nancy. Everybody has a bad day. So I'm bringing in more people on this because, believe it or not, sometimes I'm actually sending my requests to people that actually know some of the victims, either went to high school with them with me, or we worked together. And this insane story, here we go. And he said, did you hear that Andrea was killed? And I said, no. Now, Andrea's kind of important because she was, first off, a beautiful person. She's on the way to the Olympic Games with her husband, Chris Hughesby. And Chris was a director at a company called Irwin Home Equity. And Chris and I didn't really get along that well, but eventually apparently him and Andrea got married. And that was after I left Irwin. And Chris and I had some debates about math. He asked me to write a report, and you know, he said, write this report, and I looked at the numbers and I said, can't you figure that out in your head? I guess I was a little arrogant. Hey, nice car. nice 60, 69, 70, long, beautiful car. Just went by. So, you know, Chris and I had sparks all the time, and I was the programmer analyst that was hired to do one thing, and nobody even realized I was assigned to do something else within a few weeks, and they completely forgot about it because I fixed the problem, and then nobody was complaining about the problem anymore. I fixed it another way, and then we moved on from there. But they kept me on board for a year, and they got a little tired of the $25,000 a month bill. I guess everybody would after a point. But attorneys cost more than that, and that's the way it is. So, you know, I'm here. I'm going to call this the scene of the crime. And the scene of the crime is that corner where it's going to be a little sketchy on this Wi-Fi. And a man witnessed that. And that's Krogan's, the green building with a lot of the trees around it. And then, hard to see, but up above me, above this building, a guy was thrown off that building 2 years ago. What the hell am I saying? What I'm saying is, this is not the murder capital of Northern California, but maybe it is. Or maybe it was a temporary murder capital. Now he's no longer new, and Chief Chaplin's a good guy, and I'm mad about a lot of stuff, but I'm holding I'm tempering everything, because as I watch this confidential police unit grow, I know damn well that as I watch it grow, I know damn well. Sorry for the sketchy connections again. Sorry for the sketchy connection again. So there's things I know historically, building owners. One of my very first projects when I got here that was reasonably good size was helping build a restaurant right around the corner. And today it's called Havana, but then it was called La Ultima, and the Mediterranean name, honestly, I can't remember. But the point I'm going to make is that the owner died before we could finish the project. It was a strange accident. And then my cousin and some people near me, they owned some buildings down here in Walnut Creek. And my cousin just died 2 years ago, maybe now 3, of the affliction where his right diaphragm nerve failed, and he was unable to breathe out of his lung, and eventually it forced him to move to Arizona where it was dry. So he did better in Arizona, and he's like my second father, so it's very personal. But I always wondered how I know somebody that had a 1 in 4 billion odds of something that's not in medical journals anywhere in the world, and very unusual and very unique. Perhaps the family has more insight, but right now nobody's communicating with me. They're all pissed off at me, and I don't really care. So here is the Locust Street, and I will try to get back to walnutcreekmurders.com and overlay my templates that I've been building onto walnutcreekmurders.com, and I will talk about Locust Street. I will talk about California. I will talk about South California, and I will talk about the homeless that I know that have been killed. And I will talk about what happened on Main Street, and I will talk about what happened on Commercial Lane and the back alleyways. And I will go all the way north to where the Walnut Creek border ends, where somebody set the Black Angus power station, whatever. What do they call it? I call it the MPOE, which is main point of entry for where they have the transformers. And then I'm going to talk about the guy that, the 90-year-old man that was killed 2 years ago when a propane tank blew up. And then I'm going to talk about the 1988 murder of Tamara Moats. And I'm going to talk about the 2001 arson of my attorney's office with Don Moats. Now, I can't find a link between Tamara Moats and Don Moats, but it's possible. And then some of the other pieces I'm going to throw in is I'm going to talk about the takeover of McDonald's and the conversion from a place where I could get a hamburger cheaply, selfish, and and go from there. And one of the things that in this whole story is I worked on these buildings, so you're talking to a guy that's not necessarily the expert de facto, but I know a lot about this, and I knew a lot of the owners, and I've always noticed, and after a while I identified by researching other areas that there's a core group of people that always seem to end up with the property. And maybe we'll drop some names. Some of them have been indicted in the federal courtroom, and that's just the way it is. So and here goes the skateboarder waving at me. He knows me. They all know me downtown here. And they're doing swish and swash in the middle of Cypress Street. So, more of the same, more of the same. I'm not going to be espousing happiness talk. I'm espousing truth. This is partly to rattle the cages of the people that nestled with me. And I'm willing to take more broken noses and more accidents and more punches in order to bring this to a conclusion. I've lost millions. I know I've lost it. I can't prove it to you because of what has been done to prevent. Attorney's office torched, another attorney beaten up here in Walnut Creek, an attorney murdered, the son of one of my attorneys killed in the jail, which is probably another murder, and then my witnesses have been killed in 5 separate civil cases. I think it's 5, and then a series of customers. So I have a story unique beyond unique, and I know that excuse me, back again. And I know there are reporters out there that are, I'm 61. I started early, and I have a unique location in this story, whereas I know the folks that are 70, 71, 75, and I know what they did, and I know what buildings they got, and all that kind of stuff. I'm not coming for you. I'm just going to point out what I think happened. And somebody will eventually give up, and then I'll get the other millions. And if I added it up based on what I would have made revenue-wise on a pro forma basis, I should theoretically have $20 million in my hands. You're back. I accept e-gift cards from Pete to Pete at PeteBennett.net. That's P-E-T-E at PeteBennett.net. And the reason I asked for that, back again. And so part of what I'm asking for is just to get by. I'm a very much of a minimalist in what I've been through. And, so many people just can't grasp the depth of what's happened. And, I've been punched, run off the road, I've been set on fire, I've gone through poison, I've gone through bacteria. I'm done. And I found out that blogging brought in some people from across the United States, very important names. And when I say important, I'm talking about entities connected to the NSA and to the Department of Defense. One of them is Mantech, if you look it up, M-A-N-T-E-C-H. And I nailed something from 2001, 2002, and tied it together with my own bacteria issues. And now that is leading into the anthrax story post 9/11. That might seem like a pretty bold statement. Why am I saying that? What the hell's going on? Well, quite frankly, it depends on what your mood is about a 9/11, but it was an inside job, and I won't go too deep about what I know, but I can tell you that it's very close to me. I will say that there's a murder near U.S. Attorney John Ashcroft that few people know about that involves somebody from Danville that I personally know and have played on stage with him. That's a pretty bold statement, but that relationship between U.S. Attorney John Ashcroft leads into Bechtel, and Bechtel leads into Dick Cheney, and Dick Cheney's wife leads into Lockheed, and Lockheed bought none other than Access Graphics from John Ramsey, whose daughter turned up dead. As I was told by the U.S. Attorney's Office, my story's bigger than the Clinton murders. I started digging, and then I realized what I found, more than one element that points all the way back 45 years, 40, well, what would I was in high school, so yeah, 45 years. And that involves some of my Mountain Lake friends that have perished. And I love you all. I'm gonna go and finish out the night. It's getting a little chilly here, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow night to play music at Retro Junkie. And so Pete Bennett signing off. I lost all my original viewers. They apparently got a little bored with me, and I don't care anymore. And I'll give you one thing, that this might not sound very fair, but if you ever go out on a date with anybody and you want to make sure you're not dating a Mormon in disguise, go to a coffee shop. It works wonders. I don't date. There's a lot of reasons. I get questions like, who's following us? So that's an FBI agent. You know, how much of this can I prove? Very little. That's the hard part. And the only thing I can prove is medical bills. And I got plenty. And I survived. And now it's my turn to fight back, or to retort. Not to retaliate, but to retort. And share my torturous story and the tragedies around me. And that's how I feel about it, and I'm not going to really change my position. Everybody in this town lives in Shangri-La in the head, and they think everything's perfect and fine. And the reality is it is not. And the tragedies are all around. Students at Los Lomas High School, teachers at Northgate, teachers at Athenian, students in Danville, student in Lafayette, and two students from Clayton Valley High. There are three train accidents where students were killed. One was, they said it was an accident. The others, they said it was a suicide. The problem is that right down the street from that suicide is my friend's son that was killed. And right down the street from that is my old neighborhood in Danville. And around the corner from that suicide 2 years ago is where the most recent death occurred in regards to a sophomore at San Ramon High that drowned. And believe me, when I say PG&E witness, I am. And I've been fucked over, excuse my French, and by one of the largest companies in the United States, or the most powerful energy company in the country, whatever you want to call them. And I did a lot of work on researching who hired me to work at PG&E, how they tied into Duke Energy, which tied into Ashley Turton, who worked for his husband worked for President Obama. She backed out of her garage in 2011, I think it was, or 2010, and it was in January, and she backed out and rolled into the garage, punctured the halogen light, and punctured the radiator. For those that don't know, glycol at flashpoint is around 600 degrees, and halogen light's 1400. Boom, she was burned alive. Like Ma Lahongo, like Sarah Hoda, like Samantha Mooney, like my neighbor in Danville, like Megan Monday, and like what's the other one? And Mike Severo, my neighbor in Danville. When you start having that many, you begin to wonder what the hell's going on. Pete Bennett signing off from the scene of the Walnut Creek crimes, walnutcreekmurders.com. See you later.